Hello and welcome to Champion Your Culture, the podcast where we dive deep into the heart of leadership and organizational culture. I'm Ryan McCarty.
And I'm George Rogers. Together, we're here to guide you on a journey of personal and professional growth. Every week, we bring you insights, stories, and strategies to help you and your company thrive in today's dynamic world.
So whether you're leading a team, running a business, or just eager to make a positive impact, you are in the right place. Let's jump right into today's show and champion a culture of purpose and passion. Welcome to Champion Your Culture. Guess who's back, yo?
Guess who's back?
Back again.
Back again.
George is back.
Ryan's back.
Tell a friend.
Tell a friend. Tell a friend. Tell a friend. Tell a friend. Welcome back, man. We're live, back better than ever here on this beautiful Monday.
I can only hope so.
We good to go. We're rocking and rolling.
Every week, it just keeps growing, man.
Yeah.
It's better and better. And yeah, very excited about everybody joining us today.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you again for joining us here on Champion Your Culture, powered by the Good Culture of Good. As we mentioned, Culture Good, we will not be remiss. We got to go ahead and shout it out. March 19th and the 20th coming up here. And just about a week. Yeah. We're going to be having our 2-day certification. Yep. And we have a lovely group so far in this cohort. I'm really excited about everybody that's coming out. Yeah. We got more people coming. So not only has Wiley Metal, Mike, the owner, gone through this, he's now sending some of his people. He's bringing 5 people with him. So he's going to have a handful of people here in the cohort, along with Big Ass Fans is going to have a rep.
With Big Ass Fans is going to be here.
A lot of those don't want to shout out everybody. We forget somebody and they get mad. So we will shout out those 2. We'll give out. Maybe we'll have some of the others on later in the podcast.
So
maybe do some short videos. So
Tuesday and Wednesday for anyone that's in charge of culture, people doing anything that has to do with leadership around culture, like that's what it's for. Yeah. So very, very excited about the 2-day. It's just something that we keep doing consistently, you know? Yep. And I think to your point, just seeing the impact of that after, right, and what's happened at Wiley Metal specifically over the last year and a half. I just want to throw this out there really fast before we dive into everything today. But Wiley Metal has gone from around 230% turnover, launching Culture of Good. Guess what they're down to now?
I will be cheating.
Do you know?
I'll be cheating. It's remarkable. It's under 20%.
It's 17%.
That's a dramatic change, all because of implementation of Culture Good and leadership development stuff. So that's awesome.
It turns out, man, people want to know that you care. Yeah. And when you do, man, it makes such a huge difference in culture, you know? Yeah. And we'll get into that here in a little while. But yeah, excited about the 2-day coming up. And, you know, those of you that are joining us live or listening on Spotify and you've been through the 2-day, we'd love to have you come back, you know, and that's something that we see from time to time. The alumni come back to go through and just freshen up. You know, it's one of the things that we teach all the time is like reinforcement, right? Reinforce. You know, if you don't have those reinforcements, then you lose what you gain, you know, and it's really important to reinforce what we've learned. And so, excited about that. That's coming up. We've got, the Hamilton County, for those of you that are from the Indy area, you know about Hamilton County. There's a leadership academy of business executives and leaders that get together monthly and learn from different leaders. And we're hosting them here. And it's exciting. So we've got an entire day with them, and that's coming up. So shout out to Bailey Rayford, who's leading the charge with Hamilton County Leadership Academy. And good people out there, man. And you've had an unbelievable last week. Yeah, man. So I feel like I'm still rocking a little bit. No, you guys. No, I'm actually good. But I had a great time. Shout out to Mike Medora and the team there, Ms. Jill, and the rest of the team and board on HR Cruise Conference. Yeah, had a lovely time. Incredible people.
I believe it was 100 people for this cruise conference, as big as one yet. And so I'm excited about that in the future. I will say I would love to be a part of the next one. I think it should just be, go ahead and just sign me up yearly for these cruise conferences, because man, it was just a great atmosphere, good speakers. And it just loved it. Performica was one of the sponsors as well, HR magazines. And then my friends over at UKG, I got to shout them out. Alina and then Julie, great people there. Rachel and Amanda was part of the group there as well. So a lot of great people, man, that I got to meet. But the sessions were wonderful. Got to stop and get off the ship over in Jamaica.
Nice.
I got to worry all my friends and family freaking out because we're going to Hades, and there's a massive jailbreak, and now the largest prison guy. He's running the streets now. The prime minister is out, and this gang members running. They call it barbecue. He's barbecuing people.
Oh, are you serious?
Like sick stuff. Yeah, so geez. Praying for the people of Haiti and the Haitian people over there for their safety that are dealing with that. Thankfully for us, Royal Caribbean,
they own a spot.
They own an island that's secluded and everything, so it's not connected in any way. Plus it's 6 hours now. People can travel, so I won't tell you that a group of us did not have our eyes in the mountains as we're looking. Like if we start seeing people jumping over coming out of mountain, shooting or anything, I'll let y'all know this black man's gonna become like Michael Phelps in like 0 to 60 seconds.
You're gonna swim across.
I'm swimming and I'm getting to land and I'm running, because on land I can go a little bit. I'm a lot faster running. And then I can also, God bless their souls and their sacrifice for George's life. I might accidentally trip or knock some people over or something, like I'm surviving. That's all I know.
You never have to be faster than the bear. Just be faster than your friend.
Yep. So no, but it was a great time.
I have a big question for you, because it's an HR cruise. I've been on cruises before, and it's wild. So I want to know how HR people are how do HR people act on a cruise?
They act the same way they do on land.
Wild.
Ain't no party like an HR party. There's only another set of people. So there's two of my favorite people in the audience that I love speaking to, HR people, because they're going to put on a good time. Speaking of good time, before I left for the cruise, shout out to HR Indiana, Volunteer Summit, Vicky Cook. And Aaron Stevens, I got Miss Faith came over, Megan Nail, who's here locally, and the rest of that team. We got to hang out with them Friday, did a keynote for them Friday, and so. But just like that, they know how to put on a good time. They know how to say work is work, and this ain't work. Right. And they have a good time. They definitely let their livers and their kidneys and the rest of their organs know who the boss is for that night or week.
I think it's wild, because HR people, they are very compliant, which is really cool, because I've spoken some SHRMs, and I had breakouts that are like at 7:30 in the morning, after a couple days of conference. And damn it, if it ain't packed at 7:30 in the morning,
show up,
like,
man.
Wow.
You don't have to worry about anybody else not showing up. HR people to show up for you, so you don't have to worry about that. When it comes to the audience. But not saying that any of the names that I mentioned, by the way,
they
performed they were hosting. I got you.
It's great. It's great. Well, I got to get on one of those cruises at some point.
It's fun, man. It's fun.
Even if I just sneak on. And
Mike Medora does a great job. And I had a blast. I didn't know what to expect. And the space was great. Where we were meeting, it was very it was a big area, but it wasn't overly big to where you felt lost. Like it felt like more than 100 people, because it was like packed, but it felt roomy.
It kind of makes sense to do a conference on a cruise for those that can handle a cruise, because like if you can have it anywhere, it probably doesn't cost a whole lot more to go there on a cruise than it would be to maybe say Vegas or somewhere else, where every other conference is going to be. I love that idea. Yeah, pretty cool, man.
It was good, man.
I was thinking about starting an HR conference, but we're all in canoes. Not a big cruise ship.
That should be a leadership development conference.
I
always said this, man. I remember the first couple of times I used to take our youth kids on canoe trips.
Yeah.
And I always felt like that was like communication on another level.
Oh God.
You're talking about teamwork, team building.
Shit.
Like if you want to know whether or not your relationship, friendship, businessship will last, go canoeing with somebody.
Yeah.
If you want to know that if it's almost over, see whether or not that canoe flips over and that person helps you.
I kid you not. The last time I went canoeing with a bunch of dudes, right? We had about 8 guys, 9 guys. We had a bunch of canoes. Well, the first canoe is where we put all the food.
Right.
And so we packed the whole canoe full of food and we pushed the canoe out a little bit, got the first guy in, second guy tries to get in, flips the whole thing over.
Oh, wow.
So the start of our long day canoe trip is all the sandwiches that all the wives have made for their husbands just floating down the river.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just all of our food, packages, everything was just sunk.
That's
yeah.
funny.
Canoeing is it's a test of one's will for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, how does canoeing relate to culture and workplace leadership? You know what I'm saying? We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to relate something. We're talking about canoes or cruises.
Yeah.
You know, let's a canoe and a cruise boat are 2 separate things, right?
Well, I like the idea of like a sailboat.
Yeah.
You know, and the idea of culture being the wind in our sails.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We've talked about that before. Well, you feel it. It's a motivator.
Yeah.
It propels us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, without wind, a sailboat really is just a boat.
Yeah.
And I think without culture, your business is just another business.
Right.
Culture is what makes it special. It's what makes it move. You know, I mean, it
a healthy culture.
A healthy culture.
Yeah.
Well, sure, you know.
A perfect-ish.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a bad culture, it's still the wind, but it's probably destroying the sails.
Yeah.
You know, and it's causing more damage than it is actually pushing you forward.
Right.
And I think that's the idea with culture for me is like, that's the win in the sales of a company. That's, you know, the canoe part. I don't know with culture, man, that's a tough one with,
yeah.
You know, if you're not used to it, I would say the only thing I could connect a canoe to culture is if you're not used to canoeing, it's difficult to get into you think you watch people canoe and it's like, okay, I can do that. But once you get in, it really requires a massive amount of balance,
right?
Because you can tip to the right or left. And I think that idea around culture makes a lot of sense. It's like, it really requires practice. It requires doing it. And the more you do it, the more you gain your balance, the more you feel it feels normal, you know, because a lot of times we talk to executives and leaders and business owners, and we're talking culture and bringing in workshops into their business. And at first it's like, well, I got to get this together and that together. And, you know, we got some internal things to get right before we start talking culture. And I'm like, no, that's what you're trying to get right.
Yeah.
Is your culture. Like, don't paint the whole house before I come in and do some remodel.
Right.
And that's sometimes I think, you know, the pressure that we have as leaders is, especially in today's world, is we have to compete against the idea that all of our cultures are supposed to be amazing.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? No matter what size of business you are, you should have all the same benefits that every big company has. That it just doesn't translate that way with small or medium sized companies, right? When you have a large company, you have a lot to work with, you know, and that dynamic is different. The challenges are different too, though. And I think it's really important to understand that culture takes time. It just takes practice, same way as canoeing does or anything else. It's just when you first get into that canoe, it feels weird.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, you got to have a balance too. You want to talk about
I'm saying, the balance
of being together and really communicating.
If everybody's leaning to the right, and one person's leaning to the left, it's tipping to the right.
Somebody's flipping.
Yeah. So you can't have, like, in a company culture, you can't have the leader saying this is what it is and everybody else that's actually doing the work. It's such a far gap between what the leader sees and what everybody else sees that's going on in the culture, you know? And I think we have to find that balance and say, hey, we're all in this canoe together.
Right.
And if we're going to rock this, I mean, you see it not just with canoeing, but what was it called? Those real skinny long boats, and everybody's just kind of, you know what I'm saying?
You talking about kayaking?
No, it's like a kayak.
Kayaking?
No, the one where it takes an entire team of
people. Oh, row.
You're
rowing.
Row. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what those are called. I know it's rowing.
But you know, that's like
you're talking about like 12 to 20 people,
a long ass canoe, and everybody has to be synced up. And the more synced up you are, you know, because you don't have that wind in your sails too, you know, so it's like, that's a whole nother thing. Like when you don't have a sailboat, you're working a lot harder. When you don't have that wind in your sails, you're going to work a lot harder. You can like replace that wind with a bunch of motors on the back of the boat and programs and culture programs. But until you change that internal soul of your business and why you do business in the first place, and have a common cause and a common mission that everybody's, you know, knows a direction that they're headed, you're just out in the water floating. You know? And it feels like that sometimes. People lose, and you know you're in a floating state when you kind of lose your heart for it. Just float. What am I doing in this boat just floating around?
I mean, there's moments, and I'll say this, there's moments where I'm just floating around. I think I'm in that floating around stage right now where I'm just kind of like, and there's the things, because one of the things I really enjoy on the cruise is one of my favorite things to do. I always love getting a ocean view deck, a balcony area, because I enjoy, especially at night. Somebody asked me, George, what is it? Why do you go out there? You can't see anything. Now, if you look straight down, you can see obviously the waves coming from the cruise ship that's bouncing off. Every once in a while, you'll see a bird flying through. The reality is, anything further than that, you know, 20 feet out, you do not. It's pitch black. And the only thing you can see if you're on the right side of it is, you know, some stars, and maybe far out you see on the cruise ship. And you're wondering if it's really a cruise ship or a pirate ship. You know, I'm the captain now. This is my boat.
Pirate ship, there's no lights on.
But my favorite thing to do, in all honesty, is just to sit out there and just listen. I like to hear those waves crashing. And then there's something soothing to me. And I don't know if maybe it's just because I didn't get rocked enough when I was a kid. But man, it's so peaceful before I go to bed to just sit out there and just enjoy that movement. And I think it's important for us, as much as we're rowing and we have to be in sync at times. I think that also we have to know when to hold and when to fold. And we got to know when to say, all right, it's okay to relax right now. There's no wind, there's no storm. We're going through a period of season. Hey, let's get some rest.
That's true.
And so finding that proper time, as you know, as we talking about this analogy of rowing and everything, I think there's moments, and I'm in that moment right now where I'm just kind of like pause, trying to figure out, make some decisions, tough decisions, easy decisions. You know, quarter one is over, reevaluating, checking in with myself, reevaluating, how did Q1 go? Did it meet expectation, exceed expectation? Did you fail? How did you fail? Why did you fail? What can we do moving forward? Right. The whole feed forward, the philosophy that we discussed last month. And so I like to do those things. And right now I'm at that place where I feel like, all right, I've been rowing. Sometimes we don't get the outcomes that we want, right? We don't get, we feel like we put a lot of work in. We've checked all our resources and, you know, plugged them in. And it's like, man, Q1, maybe everything wasn't there. I think it's a good time, especially as you're riding, you're selling right now in this thing we call life, leadership, and workplace. That it's important to enjoy just some steady movement in the water without having to work, and relax, reevaluate. But if you want to get to where you want to get to, you're gonna have to get back to it.
Either rowing or putting the sails up. Even within the sailboat, there's work, right? Like you think about the amount of effort it takes to harness that wind. And I think all of us have culture. All of us have good people. All of us have dedicated leaders. Now, is everyone? No. But I guess the sign of great leadership is how well they harness the good that they do have. So when you have committed people, how are you harnessing that passion? How do you harness? Like, that's the idea of harnessing the wind. It's like creating a sail that when these three people in the workplace get involved in it, it really pushes the project forward. See what I'm saying? You know, there's people like they're culture leaders is what they are. And it's not just about pushing a project forward to get something done. It's getting something done collectively together. Right. But you're always going to find certain people that are like, they're part of that breeze. You know what I'm saying? They're part of that push forward. And if you can harness that power, if you can enable them, if you can empower them to perform at a level that gets them to where, you want to see the results within your business. I mean, that's right on the front of our book. It says like driving results by letting people bring their soul to work, but when people feel that sense of connection to meaningful, purposeful contribution in work, then they're more apt to get involved and put their best into that effort. You know what I'm saying? But how do we harness that? How do we harness the culture? How do we capture it in a sense? How do we capture it so that it can push us forward?
Right.
And where it's not just culture is just happening.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it all last year. Like, is your culture happening by chance or by choice? When culture happens by choice, we're harnessing the power of individuals and teams. We're galvanizing the workforce around something that's common. We're saying this is the direction that we're headed, and here's why we're doing it. And we've gained the buy-in from people because they realize, like, we are doing this, and we have a track record of not just starting a bunch of shit and not continuing to do it. That's a whole nother thing,
Right. So let's continue this and dive into this topic of how the culture drives performance and really fuels
today's
retention.
CPR.
Yeah, CPR.
Usually when
so
we're
giving
practicing CPR, somebody needs some breath. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, that's the case in a lot of organizations and companies. They're looking for ways, and we're seeing them. We got people that are coming to our 2-day next week. They're talking about, hey, how do we get our culture better? Like, we got good culture and we're doing good in the community.
Yeah.
But how do we get to this next step? We're seeing even with Wiley Metal, they're 222+% down under 20% on their retention because of how they're dealing in their culture, and they still are saying we won't. We want to impact it. So there's always ways where culture, as you say, is that wind that determines the performance of the boat, right? The performance of employees. Culture is that wind that determines the employees' performance and really fuels that retention and the business performance, right? So how we are meeting expectations. And things of that nature. Can we talk a little bit, because we speak a lot about culture and really how to foster a sense of belonging, but in a sense of that wind analogy, I'm really stuck there, because I think that it moves, right?
Yeah,
like it does truly move people into a place of engagement. We like to say, employee fulfillment is the new employee engagement. Like, we don't want to just be engaged, right? We don't want to just get employees engaged. That's, I don't want to say easy, but it's somewhat easy. Right. If you can find a strength and if you can find the strength of and the value of a person, you can get them engaged very easily by plugging them into something that connects with them. But if you want to go beyond that, what we believe, they go from engagement to efficient, right? Is because they're fulfilled.
It's through fulfillment. When I feel fulfilled, I'm bringing more of myself into it.
And being authentic. Let's dive into that portion there, because I want to talk about that fulfillment portion. Because I think that the value add for a lot of organizations, for those who are looking to say, how do we increase our engagement? We have all these different, there's a lot of HR tech softwares out there. There's a lot of different things that can help that increase the culture of the workplace. But when it comes to culture, for me, I just don't want to be engaged anymore. I want to be fulfilled. What does that mean, and how do we get there?
Yeah, well, first, I mean, we start with this idea of engagement, right? I mean, the question is like, who am I getting engaged to? Like when we think about engagement, we think about a level of commitment that's different than when you're courting someone or you're dating. And so I always like to think that it, in terms of how we think about engagement in the workforce, we really are, in a sense, just dating in that way. There's in today's environment of work, there's less sense of loyalty to the employer, because there's been decades of no loyalty to the employee. And so we've kind of baked into the realities of work a challenge. And the challenge is, how do we get people to feel something different when they come work for us? What is the compelling reason that stands out? We talk about culture, to your point, all the time, right? We're using the metaphor as the win in our sales today in terms of thinking about what are the steps of implementing a cultural movement like that. We have to start from a place of engagement, and then we have to say, what are we asking people to get engaged with? And turns out the motivator for engagement can be the carrot, right?
Yeah.
The stick, or it can be intrinsically motivated. And when it's intrinsically motivated, or like we would like to say, or I would say, is like a soul motivator, like motivating my soul, giving me a greater sense of purpose in life when I go to work, giving me a greater sense of meaning and fulfillment to be able to do something with my skills, abilities, talent, time, treasure, all the T's, testimony that affords me the opportunity to say that when I work at that or for that employer, it connects me to that fulfillment. I don't have to go work for a charity to be charitable. I can go work for George, and because George has a heart, I get to have a heart every day. You know what I'm saying? If I work for a leader who could give two shits, then I don't have an opportunity to give two shits, because part of how the culture works is that the win in the sales is the culture, but there is a captain, it turns out. And even in a sailboat, there's a wheel. Right. So the wind could be blowing, the culture could be active. But if the captain or the leader, the person who's in charge, who has authority, if that person is toxic and just spinning things around, then it doesn't lead to that sense of fulfillment.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it doesn't lead to what we're talking about today. So I think at the end of the day, it's really important to say, are people fulfilled working here?
Yeah.
And what's going to bring that fulfillment? Yeah. And instead of just sitting back and saying, well, it doesn't really matter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I write my name on their check, that should be enough. Well, it's not.
Yeah.
So you got to deal with that.
Yeah.
I mean, we deal with a lot of that in manufacturing, companies dealing again with turnover, and that issue is not going away. And a lot of these manufacturing plants are in small towns.
Right.
You only got so many people to go through, man. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't flip through people 3 or 4 times, once you lose people, those people generally don't come back working for you. So in small towns, it's a big issue.
Yeah.
230% turnover. So you're turned twice, your entire workforce over twice every year.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's really important to ask these hard questions and say, do people feel fulfilled?
Yeah.
And I think the first question we have to ask is, and this is for those that are leaders, that are owners and on the C-suite and so forth, that have the authority. Am I fulfilled? You know what I'm saying?
That's good.
But workplace culture leads to fulfillment. Because of that, it leads to greater performance. You know what I'm saying? So those are the kind of things in terms of how we promote, how we care for each other, how we support one another, how we show up for each other, how we talk to each other while we're at work. You know what I'm saying? How we have each other's backs.
Yeah.
How we keep the kind of attitude that's optimistic. It may not always be positive, but it's optimistic. Always is looking for the good instead of the bad. All those things are really important in terms of how we harness that culture within the workplace, and I think that's the key is capturing the heart and soul of the business and letting that be the wind in your sails.
Yeah, I think one of the factors that I realized in our new research with Lighthouse Research and Advisory, we just released, one of the things that really stuck out to me was, and you can share this graphics, the last one, where employees were nearly 2 times more likely to say that their workplace culture does not foster community and belonging. where the employers are saying, yes, we're creating this community. We're creating this sense of belonging within our workplace. We got all these cool things that we're doing. We're recognizing our employees and we're empowering them. And the employees are saying, you know what? I don't know if that's the case or not. It's interesting because we as an employer side, as business owners and operators, C-suite levels, whatever it may be, directors and managers, we work so hard to create community, or what we perceive from our own perspectives, right, of what community culture and belonging looks like and feels like for ourselves. And there's that struggle of what it actually is, which goes back to me on how are we communicating. Right. Because when we talk about breathing life and giving CPR to the company, hey, how do we, give CPR, culture, performance, retention, those three things, how do they connect? Good culture usually impacts performance, and performance usually impacts those people who want to stay or leave. Not necessarily for those people who are underperforming, but the performance that they're doing, how's it been recognized as well, right? And so from a performance standpoint, even a culture standpoint, the simplicity of culture, beyond engagement, fulfillment, and to become efficient. We talked about, fostering a sense of belonging. We talked about empowering the employees, right? Giving them leadway, flexibility to make decisions and decision-making, right? Where they don't feel their autonomy and really transparency on the outcomes, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, and what that looks like. Right. And so celebrating, we talk about celebrating them when they win, but I always say celebrate us when we fail. And what I mean by that is recognizing, hey, we made a mistake. It was a bad decision. And what we're not going to do is just sit here and let it hold us back. Let's keep on swinging. Because when you look at it, when we look at work, very rarely do we say, all right, we're shooting, we're shooting 40%. That's good. Right from the 3-point line. No, we want 90 and 100%. That's what most of us look like. But when I think about it, man, some of the greatest, and I'm thinking about it in baseball. Baseball's kicking off. And I was thinking about our good friend Joe Walsh over at the Arizona Diamondbacks. Because they beat my Cubs the other day. And one of the things I was thinking about, our Cubs. But one of the things I was thinking about was that these guys are batting. They're not even batting 500. They're striking out more times than they hit home runs every year.
You're batting good over 300,
right? And so it's that they're getting celebrated. For 300, right? 3 out of 10 shots, they're doing something. They're getting on base at least, right? And it's flip flopped in the workplace. We want 70 or better. We want 70% or better. And I understand those things, but what my point is celebrating those victories. Understanding, hey, we're going to strike out a lot more than we're going to hit a home run. And in some cases, I don't want us to keep on swinging overly aggressive just to get that home run, because sometimes it's good just to get on base. Right? Don't
try to swing for the fences.
So you don't have to swing for the fences. And that relates to me, swinging for the fences. If you swing, you ask any home run hitter, especially in the home run derby, you want to see them get tired out, see how often they're swinging for the fences and what that does. When we are swinging for the fences in the workplace, we're destroying our mindset. We talking about mental health. We talk about well-being when it comes to the workplace culture and keeping the employees engaged and fulfilled, promoting that work-life rhythm that we talked about all the time, and recognize that, hey, as we said earlier, this is important for us to relax on the waves. Rowing's done, right? Let's take a break. Let's, gaze our eyes. Let's, get our eyes fixed, make sure our vision's good for where we want to go, check in with each other. On the performance side, though, next one is the performance. One of the things that I found that was interesting as well, and this is all on our piece research, performance engagement and culture enablement. One of the other things that stuck out was employers and workers, both, are less interested now in 2024, are less interested in performance management, and they're more interested in performance enablement. Right. And we talk about the management all the time. We manage, processes and systems and strategies. We lead and engage with people, right? And so from a performance management versus a performance enablement, shifting that focus, right? Moving away from that traditional performance management approach where, we're looking at things in this view and focus on ratings, focus on these evaluations and reviews, to more of adopting this approach where we emphasize continuous feed forward, feedback, however you want to look at it, coaching, right? Raising them up to another level, developing them into the person or the place and position that they desire to be, and really enhancing those skill sets and their knowledge. The importance on that. Why do you feel like that's changed, right? The dynamic of management versus enablement. Is it where we are today? Is it we're more focused on ourselves versus the business?
There's a big part of that. I think also people just want to be trusted.
Yeah.
What's interesting, there's companies that just want to build a culture of trust but can't figure out how to do it, and everybody in their workplace wants to be trusted. And I think the reason that we want to go from management to enablement, because management speaks more about the role of the boss, and enablement speaks more of the role of the person, of the individual, of the team member. When we're managing someone, we're essentially telling them what to do, right? We've got a project management process, and nothing wrong with any of that. I mean, we have to have some project management, right? Like we're launching some new stuff with Culture of Good. We have project management, but within the project management, the best part of project management is the project enablement. It's like, who owns what, and how do we, it's the who. So when we think about project management, it's the what. When we think about project enablement, it's the who. I would say that's how I would say it, because we're not, you can manage projects, but you can't manage people. So it's like a Instagram quote, but it's like every leader manages, but not every manager leads. And when we're enabling people, we're giving them that autonomy, but we're also giving them the tools and development, to your point, the skills and everything, so that they can flourish. So what you're talking about in performance enablement is harnessing the culture. See what I'm saying? You're harnessing the power of those that you've hired to do their job really well. The effectiveness, right? Do we have effective people? Are they fulfilled? Do they feel engaged? Is there a moment every once in a while? It's not gonna be every day, but every once in a while that they're reminded, oh, that's why I love this place. You know what I'm saying? I'm not reminded every day why I love working here. I mean, I kind of am. It's always, there's always something, but sometimes you have to look a little harder, but the reason that people want enabled is because they truly can't be responsible for the outcome unless they've been given the permission to fully be responsible for that outcome. And I think the enablement is the leader being able to rise to the occasion. And so I'm enabling you. I'm managing the project, and I'm enabling you. And so within the project management, who owns what? And when we identify who owns what, then we're able to say, what do they need? Or we're able to, not what do they need, but going to them and saying, what do you need from me as a leader? And a big part of enablement, honestly, is you getting out of the way as a leader. A lot of times within project management, we get in the way.
One of the questions we asked in the research was, how effective is your performance process? And one of the key factors in that was, we always talk about, training versus developing, right? And when it came to those companies that were ineffective versus effective, right? So their processes, performance process on how they were able to enable and also recognize was ineffective. Only 40% of them said that they provide training to support performance reviews, versus those who are very effective. 94% of them say, hey, we provide training and support. So again, when it comes to performance, how things are looking, it's just another reflection of the importance of developing. And I bring that stat up because one of the things that really sticks out to me that you have brought into the world is RSVP. roles, strengths, values, purposes.
Yeah.
And one of the things when I think about performance is really embracing that strength-based approach, where we're looking at strengths, and leveraging, George's strengths. Not necessarily to say, hey, George, what's your strengths? Oh, we want to get more out of you, but we're not going to pay you more.
Yeah.
But hey, George, are you using your strengths? Is your strengths connected to your day-to-day work?
Yeah.
Right. How do we get that connected? How do we give you essentially life and permission to use your gifts and your talents that you care about? Because, at the end of the day, people say, what makes work not work for you? My strengths are connected to everything that I do.
I want to bring my strengths,
and I want to connect those things. Right.
Fulfilling.
Yeah.
If I'm working if I'm working a job that doesn't align with my strengths, that's the opposite of fulfillment.
Yeah.
That's frustration.
Yeah.
You go from fulfillment to frustration when you're working outside of your strengths. So helping team members identify their strengths, identify their values, same thing.
Yeah.
If you're living every day in a work environment and you have to look at your values and say, peace out, I'm going to check you at the door when I go into work. That won't be fulfilling either. Let's think about role. Same thing, right? Like if I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing every single day, because I don't know what role I fill in this, then that creates an entirely different set of issues, right? So in terms of performance, when we think about an athlete, they perform at a level because of development. They don't perform at a level just because they're skilled and gifted. Now, some people are born with speed.
Yeah.
Not a lot you can do about that. Some people are just fast. You know what I'm saying? And they'll always be faster, no matter how much development you do.
Right.
It may be because of that, my role changes and I'm not the sprinter.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you look at strengths and you identify, you're really fast, right? Like off the jump, you'd make a great sprinter. You know what I'm saying? So your role. You go to the Olympics, which is coming up, right? And you're a sprinter, you're a marathon runner. That's kind of important to know before you go perform, because your performance is going to be based on that. How you train, how you've developed those muscles and that muscle memory. So when the gun shot goes off, you're right off.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The blocks faster than anybody else in that millisecond makes a difference, so that at the end of that race, you haven't run for the last 20 years of your life, trying to get to the Olympics, and then you're off by 1 millisecond, you got second place.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That would just eat you alive.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? You're honing your gifts, your skills. You generally want to bring that into life because you're going to be better at whatever you're doing if you're doing so in your skill set.
Yeah. So when you were talking, I have this whole voices in my head thing, and I'm like, know your role.
Yeah.
The employers are saying know your role, and employees are saying you better recognize. Right. And there's a balance, knowing your role. And then when I understand,
the employees are saying slow your role.
Yeah, slow your role.
Know your role and slow your role.
Know your role, slow your role, and then you better recognize, right? And that recognition is important.
Yeah.
We got a come on man or a crazy HR.
I mean,
maybe.
This has happened about a month ago.
And this is something that's very relative, because I always think about this story as we open it up. When I think about this, there's a few things that come to my mind, and I know sometimes both of us we kind of see it from a different perspective. And we'll get into this conversation.
Let's look at it.
But in the back of my mind, this is exactly what I feel like. Early on in my career, where I was doing something good. And I just wanted recognition. Sometimes that recognition was verbal back then. I had leadership that didn't know how to compliment and say thank you or appreciate you.
Yeah.
Or hey, even in confrontation, I'm sorry I messed up or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. And I felt like when they were looking at me, they just said, hey, George, you want a cookie?
Yeah. Here it is. Yeah, this is a come on, man. This is a big one, right? So for those who haven't heard, Sephora, which is a how would you describe it? They makeup,
your retail. They're
retailer and makeup,
retail.
And all that stuff. Anyway, reached $10 billion and gave every single employee a cookie.
Want a cookie?
With on the cookie, We did it. Yeah. We did it.
Yeah.
10 billion.
Yeah.
My thought, don't even mention how far you've got as a company if you're just going to send out cookies to people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, saying the number makes the situation a lot worse.
Yeah, $10 billion, man. I mean,
that should promote it.
Not,
like, I mean, sure, we can Google it. You know, if they're not a private company, if they're a public company, sure, we can figure out those numbers.
Oh, yeah, the margin.
The margin of that. You know, and maybe their margins suck. Maybe they did do 10 billion, but you know, they only made
they could only afford 1 cookie per person,
right? And I think, you know, now this would be my frustration as an employee.
Yeah.
Right. Is I would have rather had a check of some sort.
Yeah.
But even if you can't give me money or a gift card to Nike or whatever it is that I like it's very difficult. And I believe they have, you know, somewhere between 15, 20,000 plus employees, maybe.
That's a lot.
They got a lot of employees. So even if they did 450,000 or $450 or something like that, $500, you know, that's $1 million or $2 million.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. But that's where it's like, because I've seen this, and I'm speaking from the owner side of it, where a company does really good, we say, all right, what's the allotted? What employees don't see is the breakdown of business, right? Sure. So they don't know the expenses and all those things. Sure, we did 10 billion, but that's why I go back to say, you know, what if their margins aren't as great? Yeah, they hit sales and they did 10 billion, but is that 10 billion profit? If there's 10 billion in profit, then we surely have a different
profit. I'm just saying the cookie would taste a little different if I knew the company.
It should be a dozen, right?
At least a dozen.
And so my problem is that sometimes, you know, here's a lesson as an owner operator, those who are marketing with companies, don't put out what you've done in sales unless you're going to put out your expenses or profits, what it actually is. Just say, hey, we had our best year yet, or we 2x'd our business. But when I think about it now on the employee side, I'm starting to think, was the card signed? Was it printed?
Yeah.
Was it handwritten?
It was just
right? Or was it just a printed, you know, here's
a printed
efficient.
I think the cookie was printed too.
Yeah, the cookie was printed. The cookie was probably stale. What happens if somebody gets a cookie and they're allergic to something? Do they think about those things? Those are all the things when it comes to this goes back to, and I'm on a rant now, Ryan, but
then the cookies worth
it goes back to, do you know my love language?
If I'm allergic to a cookie, that cookie's worth.
Do you take a bite on purpose?
Oh, I eat the whole thing. Are you kidding me? You make 10 billion, I'm gonna get $1 million of it.
Yeah. There you go.
I'm joking. I'm
Charlie Sharp.
But that's a come on, man, and that speaks to recognition, right?
Yeah.
Like that was recognition to the company, not to the people.
Right.
It was like, we did it, we made 10 billion. Not we did it, we did it. Because if we did it, then we would not be sitting here with a plastic cookie in our, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that I think is like messaging and how we say things. And this is recognition, because so much of recognition is verbal. So much of recognition is how not just what we communicate, but how we're communicating it.
Right.
That was a fail.
Right.
In communication, essentially, to your point, it could have been, positioned differently,
right?
You know, but you know, I think you were saying a couple weeks ago that in the study that you've been doing with Lighthouse and with Ben, and you know, just a few years ago, the top priority for employees was the development,
right?
And you've seen a flip from with recognition having a higher interest within employees than even the development piece of it. So that's really interesting to me. And I would say the reason why is so much of a focus was on the development side for so many years. And then as employees are being developed and growing and their skills are getting better, how are we recognizing that?
Yeah.
Because I would say part of performance and development is the recognition. If we're not recognizing growth, then there's not a great priority put on the development side.
Yeah.
If we're prioritizing development, then we have to recognize when people are growing.
Yeah.
We have to recognize when people are doing a good job. We have to recognize when people try and fail.
Yeah.
We have to recognize that, because if we don't, then what we're doing is we're developing, but we're not giving any feedback to those employees as they're going through the development, as they're growing. How in the world do I know that whether or not I'm fulfilling what I need to fulfill. And if I don't know if I'm fulfilling what I need to fulfill, then I won't be fulfilled.
Right.
If I know I'm fulfilling what I need to fulfill, then I'll be fulfilled.
That is a very fulfilling statement.
You know what I'm saying?
It's true. You know what you're, and I'll read these out. And this is a different research. So we're and we'll invite everybody out coming April 3rd.
Okay.
April 3rd, Ben and I'll be going live for 2024 research on talent acquisition. So this is one of our new research studies that I was sharing with you, does about the hiring process.
Okay.
With candidates, and the top 3 candidates priorities. And it's very easy, right? So it's starting pay, it's easy application process, and it's career growth. Those are important to people's. Now, outside of those 3, the other ones that I felt like was really important, that I thought was interesting, and it was a new question.
Yeah.
Number 4, getting a feel of the company culture so I know that it's right for me.
Yeah.
Right. This is a selfish thing. That it wasn't usually about culture. Some people were staying because they're getting paid very well, but they're in a piss poor situation.
Yeah.
From leadership and culture wise.
Yeah,
right. We were okay because we're getting paid. Yeah. Now we're saying pay doesn't really, like, I care about the environment that I'm going into. Right. And a lot of things have come to play. We're more in tune with the whole mental health. It's not a taboo situation, right? The pandemic has changed the nature of how we nurture ourselves, but also as leaders, how we nurture our employees and our team and take care of them. So that was another one that was very impactful for me when I saw that those top 4 there: starting pay, a smooth and easy application process that respects my time, right? Don't waste my time. And then number 3, a commitment to helping career growth and advancing their career was important, as well as, hey, at the end of the day, also after those top 3 things, once I come to your company, I want to make sure that the culture fits me.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, it reminds me of our stat that we're seeing. And this is a question, I guess, of how long do you think it takes for workers to know if they're going to stay with the company? How long do you think it is?
Well, I'd be cheating if I said anything different.
Prior to cheating.
Well, I would say it takes a few weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like just my brain goes to that.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know. Well, and that's just me a little bit too, because I feel like I would know pretty quick.
Yeah.
But also I think I'd come in with a little skepticism, just because I'd want to, like, it's going to take a second to see whether I want to.
Right.
But I would know pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Most people now, research says that within 5 days.
5 days?
Within 5 days. So within that 3 to 5 day period, my belief and understanding is that, you know, based on marketing, based on all the things that I've seen, based on the interview process, you said a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not adding up. Right. Beforehand, we're like, all right, maybe I need to get out. We get through this training. You know, leadership said this, leadership is this. They talked about the culture being another thing. And now they're saying, you know what, within the first 5 days, it's not even 60 days or a month review, 30-day review, or that 90-day evaluation that, you know, a lot of workplaces do or used to do. Employees are now saying, you know what, I'm going to have to make a decision now, whether or not this is a good fit for me. And this is what I desire, because it's a reflection of one thing. When I think about this, whether or not they're going to stay or leave, if people are leaving within 5 days, what they're saying is, you said a lot, and by my speedy calculations, right? And I talked to a disgruntled Sarah over there with a sorry and rotten attitude. That's what Sarah stands for. Not all Sarahs are sorry and rotten attitudes, right? But I can't, you know, I'm not having joy because I just, you know, connected with sorry and rotten attitude over here employee that told me that, you know, that everything that was said is all gibberish, and the company isn't like this. They say stuff, you know, they'll give us pizza, but we don't know why the pizza's sitting in the room, and half of us don't even like the type of pizza they get. They don't even ask us what kind of pizza we like. They just
how you are.
Show up with food.
You want the right kind of cookie and the right kind of pizza.
Like, if you're gonna feed me,
at least give me.
If you're gonna feed me, speak my language. Right. If you're going to recognize me, you got to speak my language. But within 3 to 5 days, what do we do with this? We have to evaluate ourselves. We talk about checking with our employees. We got to check in with ourselves as a business and as an organization and say, what is it? And why is it that people are leaving? Right. And I would say this, if they're staying, what is it and why is it that are making people stay?
That's
right. And how do we make sure that we're displaying that at a high level, that we're keeping that healthy, that we're keeping that line of communication, whatever it is that people say they want to stay with us? Why is it? It's because our purpose is blank.
Yeah.
Right.
The mission. I think to what you're saying, if we were to back it up a little bit, what you're saying is, if you're going to promote your business to potential hires, be honest.
Yeah.
Like, don't be the casino that shows the billboard on the highway that has a bunch of young people winning Mustangs and there's coins falling all over the place.
Yeah.
And then I walk in the casino and everybody's on oxygen smoking cigarettes. It looks like they're on their deathbed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what I see on the billboard, I should see when I start working for you. So number one is just be honest when you're hiring people, you know?
Yep.
Second is, like, what do we do with the 3 to 5 day thing? Because if people don't leave in 3 to 5 days, they make up their mind to, though, which means their brain's checked out, their mind's checked out. They may work for us for 3 years.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Checking the box.
That's scary.
Yeah.
So how do we know? I mean, you can know, but you can't know if you're not checking in with people.
Yeah.
So, you know, especially that first week in a new hire's role, I would say the thing to implement within that space is mentorship. That's harnessing your culture. It's finding those culture champions within the organization that believe in it, that have the passion. Not everybody does. I get that. Not everybody's going to be 100%. Woohoo, look at this culture. I mean, we want to get there. But at first, you have to start harnessing. Where do we start today, Ryan? George, where do we start today? You start by finding the bright spots within your organization. You find the ones that are passionate, the leaders that do care, and you help mentor new hires that are coming in. You set up mentorship so that they have that support right from the onset.
Yeah.
And they're honestly told what kind of culture that this is. I mean, I've worked in retail before. People get hired and then they say, well, I didn't know it was so much work. It's retail. It sucks a lot of the time. Like, you should tell people that as you're hiring them. Like, this is a fast-paced environment. You know, we're progressive. No, it's nuts. Retail is crazy sometimes. And I think sometimes we're just not honest with people when we're hiring them. And then when we hire them, we leave them to their own vices, and we don't really have, I would say, a great orientation. So if I don't feel oriented to the business right from the onset, then my perspective is going to be skewed and I'm not going to fully experience what I want to experience in my work.
Yeah.
But if I'm onboarded well and I'm brought into the business and then the culture support it, then we talk about what happens a month from then or 3 months from then. And, you know, instead of exit interviews, we're checking in with people. We're doing the RSVP. We're doing like stay interviews,
right?
You know, we're like, why are you, to your point, why are you staying, and how do we implement that more and more and grow that? And so, yeah, those kind of that conversation is really important to have. Is like, if we know that people are making up their mind in 3 to 5 days, and what do we have? How are we interacting with that reality? And
right.
How are we creating strategy? You know, because that goes to the difference between the culture that's the wind in your sails and what's the rudder. You know, like, the strategy is like, okay, we got to turn this damn thing a little bit, and we got all this wind in our sails, so we need to turn the rudder so that the ship goes in the right direction. And that's how we do that. We find out what is the right direction for this culture. It's where people are feeling fulfilled, where they're feeling meaning, where they're feeling belonging, where they're feeling connected, where they're performing at a higher level, where they're being developed, where they're growing, where their performance and enablement is impacting their retention, and they stick around not because their brain checked out, but because their heart checked in, man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what we want. We want people not to check out. We want people to check in.
Yeah.
And the way that people will check in is when we do the same thing. We have to be what we want to see.
Yeah.
And we say that all the time, but it really is that way. We have to exemplify the kind of culture that we want to see throughout the business, because culture, to your point, drives performance, and performance then impacts retention.
Yeah. When you talk about the great places to work, think about this. When employees would recommend their company, right? I'll recommend Culture Good. I'll recommend Round Room, right? When employees recommend their employer as a great place to work, we talk about all these awards that companies apply for or buy, great things to have, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're fulfilled through the actual feedback of the employees. They're giving their feedback and saying, this is a great place to work. When employees feel like they are working at a great place in their organization, they're 9 times more likely to feel appreciated for the contributions in the company, right? When you think about just those simple things, the beyond saying this is a great place to work, as an employee, I do feel like it is, right?
Yeah.
And I'm more likely to say that I feel appreciated for my contributions that I bring to the table.
Yeah.
Now, this whole thing with Sephora that we were talking about earlier, they could have great company engagement where employees do feel like, hey,
a huge miss.
This is I feel appreciated. Yeah, that cookie was not anything, but hey, you guys don't see what they did for us or the PTO we got.
Sure.
So there could be more to it. And publicity wise, this was a fumble, right? But the reality is that somewhere deep in there, they may have employees that feel engaged because they do feel appreciated for their contributions on a higher level.
Yeah.
That we're not seeing, right? They marketed the sale wrong. It was bad publicity. It was bad marketing on their end. But other things to really point out: 6.5 more likely to say that their company provides opportunities for recognition and appreciation for their work. Think about that. They provide opportunities.
Yeah.
When I think about when I hear they provide opportunities, and I'm thinking, man, shouldn't that just be normal? Like, shouldn't we give opportunities or give recognition versus just providing those things? But those are the resources,
like,
right?
Why is that even considered?
Why is it a thing?
Yeah.
But it goes then to the lack, in my opinion, of leadership development. We got managers that are in higher positions because they're good at managing processes and systems. They're good at their roles and developing processes and systems and implementing them. From a business ROI standpoint, they're great at managing those things.
Yeah.
But you can't manage people, and sometimes those managers try to take that same hard-nosed philosophy we see into people philosophy, and it doesn't really relate.
Yeah.
And employees don't feel recognized for their contributions and things of that nature. So when we talk about culture, we talk about how it impacts performance. It also brings value to the retention. People want to stay where they're appreciated for their contributions, where they are fulfilled, as we talked earlier, for their jobs. They have more creativity on there. The other data point that comes with that research is 12.5 more likely to say that their company encourages and supports creative problem solving on the job. Given permission to say, figure it out, not just not just that make it happen, but hey, make it happen, figure it out.
Yeah.
And if it works, awesome. If it doesn't work, let's get back to the ground and start doing it. But they get that feedback from their managers. 12.5 more likely to get feedback from their managers and comfortable giving that. So they're not just receiving it. They feel more comfortable giving that because there's that appreciation there. And so encouraging everybody out there to create a great place to work.
Yeah.
Start showing some appreciation. Start showing that vulnerability in a sense of being vulnerable enough to receive constructive, feed forward from your employees. Like, I want somebody to say, hey, George, this is what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about Round Room and Culture Good and what we do, we see it a lot in TCC with our 5 promises, that we keep each other accountable, that we are going to keep those 5 promises. And if there ever is a glimpse, we pull that person aside and say, hey, I know you're going through something. It seems like you may be going through something. I don't know if you're going through something, and you don't have to tell me if you are going through something, but I just want to make sure that you know that, how you treated that person didn't really align with the promise of caring for our teammate.
Yeah. And
whatever it is you're dealing with,
people are caring. Make sure you're
recognizing it. Yep.
Yeah. Don't just recognize people when they show up.
Right.
The first day, but recognize them when they grow up.
Yeah. You show up, you grow up.
Yeah. And then you blow up.
blow up. Not literally.
Are there any rhymes there as we end?
Yeah.
Row up, roll up.
We're rolling up.
Glow up.
Yeah. And if something falls apart, sew up.
Yeah. Anyway. Thank you guys for joining us today. I love this conversation. I think it's important for people to prioritize culture, and this is certainly one of those weeks. And we have some great guests coming up over the next few weeks. We're excited to have you join us. Come back next week. We're here every single week.
Yep. We're gonna be back live next week. We got a special guest.
Yeah.
Carl Maria Scott's going to be joining us.
Yeah.
She also is the host of Manager to Manager. So it's going to be a great conversation next week with Carl Maria.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that as well as a list of other guests here in the future.
Yeah.
Some HR tech software companies are going to be joining us to talk all things.
Qualify is
going to be coming. So join us here again. As always, every week we're coming back better than ever on this lovely podcast with you live, and or you can listen on Apple, Spotify, Google Playlists, YouTube as well.
Yeah. And as always, we'll see you back here next week on
Champion Your Culture.
Thank you for tuning in to Champion Your Culture. We hope today's episode has sparked new ideas and inspiration for your journey in leadership and cultural development.
Building a culture good is a collective effort. If you found value in conversations today, please subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on your favorite platform and share this episode with your friends and colleagues.
Your support helps us reach more people and spread the message of impactful leadership and positive cultural change. Don't forget to visit cultureofgood.com to explore how you can become a certified culture champion.
Every week, we're here to bring you insights and strategies that matter. So join us again for more empowering discussions. Let's continue to champion a culture of purpose and passion together.
Until next time, keep leading with heart and let's make a positive difference in the world. And we'll see you next week on Champion Your Culture.